I'll be right back. I'm gonna grab a soda. All right, so I was trying to think of some ways to make Final Fantasy XIV look better, like graphically. And according to the what's her name, there's like do's and don'ts of like in Final Fantasy. Anyways, I'm not gonna worry about that too much. I guess if you use add-ons, you're not supposed to tell people what add-ons you use, but you know, I don't really care about that. Yeah, well, for whatever reason, it's not even working at all. Not really sure why. It was working a minute ago. It was working and then it stopped working. Wow. Lush. So we're playing around with just some different shaders. I'm trying to come up with a way to make the game look a little bit nicer. See here, you've got a very, well, as the thing likes to call lush, it's a very heavily modified color saturation here. This is obviously way too, too dark and too saturated. Yeah, this should be without any modifications to the shaders. They're just some of the settings, very basic stuff. So it's not working like it was earlier. I don't understand why. Oh, I'm not sure what I did. Statistics. See, that's working. This one's not working. Now it's working. Okay, so I was just playing around with this add-on, just basically. And again, it's a faux pas supposedly in Final Fantasy, not to really talk about add-ons. And I don't really run a lot of add-ons in games that much. But Final Fantasy is pretty. It's kind of an out-of-date engine. It's pretty old. The graphics don't look that good. Bellular was talking about it in his video. If you guys haven't watched that video, actually, it's actually pretty good. Let's see if I can pull it up. It's actually been a pretty big topic on Bellular's channel lately. If you go to Bellular's channel here, and
I have a few different thoughts.
He's talking about Final Fantasy impressions.
Yeah. Immediately, Final Fantasy XIV does not feel...
Let's go ahead and... I actually would like to kind of talk about this a little bit. So let's go ahead and kill the music. Sound here. We're going to get rid of these not the sound effects.
Feel great if you're used to World of Warcraft because you have acceleration.
Well, we're talking about, hey, Armet, I'm just talking about Final Fantasy, how like the graphics and the look and feel of the game is a little bit dated, and I just was going to bring up Bellular's video here, and actually it's really interesting because Bellular, he covers World of Warcraft for a long time, and there's been a big kind of switch of a lot of people talking about Final Fantasy, a lot of people leaving World of Warcraft to go to Final Fantasy. I mean, Final Fantasy is getting a lot of hype right now. And one of the reasons is because, Bellular's is a pretty big channel. You can see he's got, this is Bellular Clips. His main channel has over 500,000 subs, but you probably know Bellular Gaming. I don't know. But another thing that's really interesting, if you go to Google Trends and you do a search for World of Warcraft Shadowlands, right? And then you compare that to Final Fantasy XIV Shadowbringers. It's interesting. These are just kind of just the trends, but if you get rid of this and change this to Final Fantasy XIV, let's just do Final Fantasy XIV Online. And we want to do interest over time. Well, let's change this just to World of Warcraft. You can see that Final Fantasy. Actually, I'm surprised it doesn't have the interest, but it's starting to. You can see Final Fantasy is starting to catch up. It's just interesting. But anyways, yeah, so. But Bellular, one of the things
on the character movement, right? So you hit the W key in WoW.
He talks about Bellular kind of goes into in depth on Final Fantasy, like his first impressions of the game, and he talks about how when he hits a key in World of Warcraft game client, it does a lot of responsiveness. If I hit a button, it interacts. But he starts talking about some of the graphical fidelity in Final Fantasy, and it's not really that great. The graphics are a little bit dated. And he talks about, and I mentioned it too. Like I was talking about how we didn't really have, like the seams on the bottoms of certain things weren't like in here. It's actually not too bad, but we were seeing a lot of stuff where there weren't a lot of shadows and ambient occlusion is what it's called. Really, there's not a lot of ambient occlusion. It's just the game engine just feels a little dated. So I know there's lots of ways that people can try to make games look better. One of those things is using different shaders. So there's actually a new one out for called G Shade, which is basically using reshade, but it's just like a kind of like a wrapper around that. It's my I'm trying to get the bottom here. But anyways, you can go into, and I know it's kind of supposedly like a faux pas to really talk about add-ons that you put on like Final Fantasy, and I'm not the kind of person who runs a lot of add-ons. Really, I don't. I've never run a G-Shade add-on. I've never run an add-on onto any game that affects the visuals of the game. I've never done that before. But if I could run one on Final Fantasy, because to me, Final Fantasy looks washed out. Like the graphics look like it's not very, the colors aren't that great, right? But yeah, the colors aren't really that great in Final Fantasy. They feel a little washed out. And when you're in certain zones, they look better than others. That's why I think the forest zones in particular tend to look a little bit better. But this is a thing called G-Shape, which is basically, like I said, it's just a wrapper around reshade. And it's got a really nice interface. It's very easy to use. This is basically the off any. So this is basically just what Final Fantasy XIV looks like. But we can go in here and we can add this. And you can see this is going to add quite a lot of shadows. Notice the shadows around the cloth, the straps of her bag. Notice how it's really adding shadows really around all the edges. It's a little bit too much, in my opinion, but it's just something you can do. Now, the clarity is really good. If you look at her face, and let me pull something else up here too. Hold on a second. Okay, and if you look at her face here, we go to clarity. You can see it really, especially in the background. Look at this background piece of wall here. Or let's look at this wall by this light. When I hit clarity, you can see it really brings a little bit more detail in the light on the stone. It gives the stone a little bit more of a three-dimensional look. You can see the different porous parts of the rock start to pop out. It looks a lot better. Actually, I'm really happy with what clarity's giving us here. Even on her face, it's making it more vibrant. And that's only one clarity, right? There's actually two. This one does the same thing. So we get a really nice popping of some of the color and a little bit better clarity. Notice how when I turn them both off, notice how flat it starts to look again. It looks kind of washed out, kind of flat. So we can bring these two back in, and it just gives us a lot more of a rich feel. I really like the clarity. I really like that particular option. We can go with, there's another one that's kind of an interesting one. This contrastive adaptive sharpen, and this one's kind of hard to see, but it does do something. It does. Let's see, there was something I was looking at. If you really look at like her zipper or maybe like the cloth, it's really good on like the detail on like cloth. Like see how this cloth looks a little faded or a little blurry? You can see it gets a little sharper. Her zipper even, I think, starts to get, it gets a little bit crisper. It's very minor, but now these things can have a pretty big impact on your frame rates, but we can take a look at that. I've got a pretty fast system though, so for me, if we go to system configuration, you can see our FPS right here. Excuse me. Did I grab a soda? I did, right? Yeah. You can see my FPS drops when I switch to my other monitor, but when we're in the game here, we're at 60 FPS, which is kind of capped. The game's capping it at 60 FPS. Now, if you put in something like Bloom, you can see it. Obviously, but take a look at all the effects that this has. I mean, there's a lot. So you just kind of have to go through here and play around with it and see what you like. I mean, this one gives it kind of a interesting filter to really the view. Some of these do what you think they would do. Some are really interesting, like they're hard to see what happens. Obviously some of them have a big effect. Ambient light gives a little bit more what you would think. Ambient light. This one really just brightens up the area quite a bit. Let's back out. Something like this, like if you went to a super, super dark dungeon and it was really dark, and you didn't like that. Let's say you were raiding a dungeon and it was really dark in that dungeon and you didn't like that and you were having a hard time seeing stuff. You could just go into here and say, boom, turn this on and go run the dungeon, and it would just give you that nice, better lit kind of view. Let's get back to her again. And you can, now these do add a lot of shadows around the kind of where you would expect to see shadows. Probably, again, we could also see this on, also see this down on the edges. So like you see here along the board, where the stone column meets the ground, we should see this as well, right? See how even over here where the stone's meeting the wall, where it's kind of these layers coming out, you're going to see a lot more shadows. Those can really be a good thing, just because it hides the sharp lines, which can look really fake. It looks like a video game. But this type of filter here can have a pretty big impact on your FPS. I don't see it on my setup. It doesn't seem to have an impact on me. It's interesting that it's showing through the UI though. See that? That's kind of weird. That could be something that could bug a lot of people, right? That those lines they're not behind. It doesn't take into account that this isn't a UI element. So that's something you may not want to do because it's sitting on top. We'll see if see, so that's kind of annoying. That alone would probably make me not want to use that. Some of the other ones, the vignette was interesting. I liked the clarity. There's this one. Same thing. It also is not taking into account UI elements, so that's kind of annoying. But you pretty much just have to go through, and just play around with it. And so, I mean, there's built-in like, there's some built-in ones they've already got that you can just use, but most of them I don't really like them. There's some really interesting ones, I like to get her close to some objects like beds and furniture. We can really see. That's the really bright one. Adaptive tint. That one obviously doesn't work. This one kind of does a blur effect. This one really just adds a ton of color. So if you wanted to really have a more color saturated, I mean, look at that. Look at how much more color that adds to the game. Now, that's a little bit too much in my opinion, but some people might actually like that. Might like this amount of color. But it's a lot. You can even see when you're looking at the wall here, it seems to me to be oversaturated. But even when we get rid of it, that wall actually looks kind of funny anyway, to be honest. But again, that's what it looks like without it and with it. So now, and what's funny is once you play with it, with this kind of extra color saturation, or even just contrast, if you play with that for a few minutes and then you turn it off, boy, the world's going to look really bland. You can see how bland it looks immediately. It's like, oh man, this looks kind of bland. Other thing is, look at the buttons here on my system configuration when I add that colorfulness in. It's a little bit too saturated. Now, there are some global preprocessors definitions here. So it looks like you can fine tune it. Like it's the contrast here. I wonder. Yeah, so you can go in and fine tune these things. Like here. Like you could take this down. Maybe to like something like that. That's a global setting though, but that to me, that now you're adding just a little bit of color and it's not too overpowering. Let's knock that back up to about 28. Now that I like that. Like let's take a look at this. Let's zoom out. Oh, let's get these leaves in here too so we can see what like green will look like. And you can see, to me, that's a good change, just adds a little bit more color. So anyways, just interesting. Doesn't seem to on my computer affect the performance. Right. I really like the clarity though. The clarity is a really, really nice. Yeah. So anyway, those are the settings that I immediately kind of played around with that I actually did enjoy. So we're just going to leave those in, and that's just a few settings, not a lot, but just a few. See if it give us a little bit of a nicer look. Now it does have enough impact on the game, and you can see when I come out, I don't know if you can notice it, but doesn't it look richer? Even just in this room, it just looks nicer. Look at these green leaves. What do you think? What do you think, Armet? You're awfully quiet there. To me, it looks a lot better. Just a few simple, a few simple changes. Oh, you're on your phone. Okay. Yeah, if you were sitting like where I'm sitting, trust me. I mean, even just the color of this right here, this crystal, the blue here, I can tell it's just a much more, I've added more color, and just the crispness is there. Now that we're out here. Or even here, let's take a look at this red mount here, right? And if we get rid of, we'll see what it looks like when I turn that off. You can see it's not a huge difference, but it's, it definitely makes a difference. You can see the red mount, like how it's kind of, once I turn it on, the colorfulness definitely makes it a lot richer. Also, again, the aetherite crystal here. Notice when I turn it on how much more blue glow there is coming off this crystal. The crystal looks blue, or the glow coming off of it, is much richer. To me, it's a huge improvement, actually. Anyway, it's just something fun. You can see it on the crystal, yeah. Yeah, the one thing that I didn't like about Final Fantasy is I felt the graphics were flat, like the colors were flat. There just wasn't a lot of richness to it. So really, that's what I was trying to improve with the reshaders. It was just trying to make it look a little more lush, a little more rich, bring out the colors of the trees and stuff. And so, mission accomplished. I'm actually really excited about that. And being able to get some of the Christmas in here was just a bonus. I grow weary of these suspicions. I know there is one child in particular that she is fond of. Pray seek out the boy Meadow and see if you cannot glean something from him about Orson's activities. I can't remember who Orson was. Let's see here when I let's try it up here. You can just see the whole, you know. Look at the glows. This really the glows make a big difference too. Yeah, and like I said, I kind of modified the colorfulness right here. Let's knock it up a little bit more. I'm gonna put up to 34 to give us some nice color. The other thing I want to do is I want to make sure that I wasn't really impacting my. I don't feel. Everything still feels pretty. I mean, the FPS is still pegged at 59, so it's maxed because it never shows higher than 59 on my system. No, you did push through. Congrats. Yes. Congrats, dude. Well done. Oh, you need to get to bed, man. It's only 11:40 here. I'm gonna go to bed pretty soon. I was just playing around with these different settings here. Let's see here. Yeah, congrats though. Level 70, dude. Now you gotta start getting all your faction done. Start doing your raids. You spoke with the child. Yes, I was able to find his lost trinket. It was a ring given to him by his mother. I am level 20, level 26. It's kind of hard to see. Here, let me. You can see it. It's down at the bottom of the screen down here. See, it says level 26. It's kind of hard to see. It's hard to see. You've got a 20-something on there somewhere. Haven't played it since December of... What's up, Tith? I haven't seen you in a while, Tith. I created this character just a few days ago, a couple days ago, and it's been pretty easy getting her to level 26. Let's see. Whoa, we don't want to go that way, do we? Yeah, it's really fun. It is very fun. I'm having more fun this time than I did last time, but it's because I've learned more and there's been people, it's been very fun. Oh, I actually, I mean, geez, well, just if you want to know if it's been fun, GS, you saw I streamed earlier for like 6 hours. It's so much fun. I came back. Here I am again playing. You don't see me stream WoW for 6 hours and come back like an hour later and keep playing. But I played World of Warcraft for over 17 years. I've only played this game a whopping total of about 70 hours. Sister Orson was attacked outside the Golden Bazaar. Gods for Fend. I will secure a room at the inn for her should she require any rest. Search for the memories, the mementos of orphans, and risk your own well-being in the doing, no less. Certainly not the dastardly deeds Thancred would have us believe. Very true. Very true. I'm doing better with the map than I was, but I mean, I understand how it works. I'm just not a fan of how it works. And there's other maps that work like this, like EverQuest 2. EverQuest 2 map is very similar. I don't like how you can drag this map around inside the window. I think that's silly. This just should be locked in this window. And if I want to drag it, I would resize this. So it's weird to me that this is like independent of the frame that it's in. That seems really bizarre to me. So in fact, I've never seen that before. So that's kind of strange. But I just wish you could right click on the map and it would zoom out, or even scroll in and out, and it would, or maybe control scroll in and out or something, so you could jump out instead of having to click this arrow to go up and up. So here's the main map, and then you click. Now this part it works fine. This part I don't have a problem with. You click on like Thanalin, it zooms into Thanalin, but then you still have to zoom back out, and now you can see Central Thanalin, Northern Thanalin, Western, Southern. And then you click on these areas to zoom in. So it's fine. I just wish I could right click on it to zoom out as opposed to have to always go over here and click this thing to zoom out. It's okay. Maybe you'll start slowly. Look at this person's head. They've got a chicken head. I'm well glad reserved that infant sister. She received greater injuries from her attackers than she led on. Thankfully, she is expected to make a full recovery by now. On the matter at hand, Thanker came looking for you once more. He left word that we'll be waiting at the Homage encampment to the southeast. Pray the two of you be able to uncover some evidence regarding these disappearances. Yeah, retail is just terrible. Retail WoW is completely lost me as well. You know what I mean? Terrible lens flare. Oh, nice. Oh, nice. Wow. This is super cool. This is actually showing you the actual meshes. I wonder how they do that. That is really cool. You can actually get a good representation of the mesh. Wow. And these look real. These look like the actual real mesh. Look at her face. That's freaking cool. It's an add-on I installed called G Shade. It's just basically a wrapper around reshade. That was cool though. That was really cool. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, Cat retail lost me with Kata too. Kata was terrible. Yeah, I played all the way. I mean, I played Kata a lot because I loved World of Warcraft, but I didn't really like Kata, that much. I'm going through all these quests, and I still haven't gotten to the point where I've got the my mount yet. So I'm a little bit surprised. You know. This is really cool because it really gives you a good representation of where the models are. Yeah, I mean after Wrath of the Lich King, it was kind of it wasn't the same anymore. They didn't seem like they cared as much about the story. They weren't really like making the stories, you know. I don't know. It wasn't the same. They seemed like they cared more about the people that just wanted to level through really quick. Only one more major story, you think? Cool. Then I'm major story though. How long's the major story gonna be? What is this? Whoa. Thancred. Thancred. I've heard all about good Sister Orson. Isenbar said her wounds were serious. It would seem my suspicions about the poor Rose were misplaced. But false though they were, perhaps my suspicions were not entirely without merit. Whilst following Sister Orson near Golden Bazaar, a band of Amoljah caught my eye. Tracked as far as he can, but well, let's say I would much prefer to keep my distance and remain here. This, of course, brings me to why I requested you, dear Meadow. Would you be so kind to look inside? Of course, make me do all the hard work. Oh, yeah. I'm gonna go to bed, yeah, pretty soon. I mean, I'm gonna go to bed probably within the next 30 minutes, maybe. Oh, here's. Yeah, GS, you got to be exhausted, dude. I'm really tired too. Guess I opened up a can of whoop ass on that guy. What? Good night, GS. Have a good one, man. Don't remember the sun being so vibrant. Okay, I guess there was a lot of lens flares. All right. See the wealth of knowledge to the hands of your children. Hmm. Just remember there were these monsters on my hunter log. This one, level 18 Billy. Hmm. Seem to find another one though. That's the only one. Annie, nanny, nanny. I need a Billy. Here we go. Billy. Okay, Tuco, Tuco. Look at that crazy looking mount. Did you see that? Weird stuff, man. Ugh. Ah, my savior comes again. To what do I owe the honor for this day? Find out. What is this blasphemous? Oh, these are not our teachings at all. This was not made by any true brother or sister of the order. Of that, I can assure you. Come to think of it, weeks ago, the church was plagued by missing garments. Could someone be posing as a priest of the order to deceive these people? Plausible. Excuse me. I expect we have a worthy adversary in our hands. I shall consider how to best handle this. Looks like somebody's imposter. Somebody is being an imposter. Looks like we have an imposter pretending to be a priest of the order. All right, so of course, not an upgrade again. Identify and apprehend the false priest. Oh, I have not seen any user active, nor have I made this camp given me cause to doubt them. But unless we identify the culprit, and soon more innocents will fall victim. Do not despair. An idea occurs. And I'm really yawning. It occurs to me. Suspect has been posing as a priest using leaflets bearing false promises to lure the poor. Let Meadow and me serve like by posing as impoverished souls in need of succor. I dare to hope that this will yield the answers we seek. It will be a dangerous undertaking, but you two are more than capable of looking after yourself. I'm next to useless in battle, but I can supply the garments for the disguise. Hmm. I don't remember what that one was called. Oh well, that sucks. Ah, hello, Chocobo. All right. Speak to the locals garbed. Yeah, well, did he give us a disguise? Because how am I going to be garbed? I don't see that he gave us any clothing or anything. Speak with the locals while garbed in the weathered shepherd's tunic. I think he also said the weathered shepherds. I think it was like a leggings, right? Oh. I preach the teachings of Azima, the warden. Hast thou come to partake of the honey of her wisdom? Azima is the keeper of the sun and goddess of inquiry, always laid bare beneath the light of her and divine countenance open the heart. Okay, he sounds like he's a believer. And you are another refugee by the looks of you. The immortal flames have neither worked or coined for your like. Be gone and see to it that you don't make a nuisance of yourself. Okay, he's a nice guy. Not. For work, you say. Sorry, but we don't have any openings. Now get out of here so I can finish my story. Okay. Afraid our wares are very expensive. Maybe you should rejoin your fellows out at the pond north of Sandgate. Okay. Come on, girl. What is it? God's not again. Look, being poor doesn't give you the right to pester whomsoever you like. Why don't you keep with your own kind out by that muddy pond of yours at Drybone? Not very nice either. He was not very nice. Ooh, thank you. You have quite a knack for being a nuisance, Meadow. The camp is abuzz with talk of newly arrived vagrants. And though we were unable to track wayward transgressors, we were able to learn that the poor have a commune by the pond north of the Sound Gate. As the authorities do not reach this place, rather ideal. Let's go there and wait for the kindly priest to come and offer us aid and comfort. Needless to say, you'll need to remain in disguise. Oh, all right, guys, that's it. I got to get to bed. I'm falling asleep. We'll pick this up hopefully tomorrow. Hope you guys have a good night, and I will see you again next time. Peace out.